Sarah Mitra. Amazing. Hi everyone. Welcome. Yes, we're live now. Okay, perfect. Okay. We're going into, if you don't know what's this session about, it's about ensuring that science, technology, innovation improve gender equality and the lives of all women and girls. So, okay, Enes, we're ready? Enes? Okay, perfect. So, okay, hi, I'm Shirley Mercado, Vice President of the International Youth Conference, but I'm also a biotechnology engineer. I just graduated here in this year in June, so it's really recent. I'm really into the biotech and the environmental field too, in science, diplomacy, etc., etc. More things aside, but here I'm going to be and I have the honor to moderating this session and to introduce the amazing Apsara Mitra, who is an aerospace engineer and technical developer from NASA and the Re-Earth Initiative. So welcome, and let's give a round of applause. Okay, and well, for starters, and just to give a quick introduction for this session, if you all know why are we here for the International Youth Conference, the theme for this year is the Informal Youth Summit of the Future. Now, the main three outcome documents that were the outcome and the result from the whole Summit of the Future is the global, I forgot. The Global Digital Compact, the Pact for the Future, and the Declaration for Future Generations. Now, we're focusing more on the Pact for the Future because it's like the main and the base and the foundation for everything that is working out, for the acceleration of the SDGs, for the re-evaluation of the outdated system that we're working throughout the Second World War until now. But mainly, the Pact for the Future has 5 chapters. And chapter number 3, it's on science, technology, and innovation for digital cooperation. Now, we're going to delve more, and if you're interested on that, from within actions from 31 to 34, talking about how, as an international community, we should regulate science and technology and in a way that is meaningful for our collective and collaborative international global cooperation, right? So we're here in a specific not only to talk about science and technology and how it works in real life, how we should see this in the interface on politics and diplomacy, but how we see it specifically in the lives of all women and girls. What's the role of science and technology within the advancement and the progress of gender equality, SDG number 4, if I'm not wrong, and SDG number 5, sorry. So yes, we're here with multiple things, multiple intersectionalities to this so amazing topic, and sometimes really invisibilized. Now, women in STEM has been like recent movement and a recent power up movement regarding how we can better strengthen and how we can better empower women and girls in a specific into the STEM fields, right? But yes, we're talking here, and I'm just gonna pass it on to you, Apsara. Thank you so much for being here. If you want to give some welcoming remarks, if you want to tell your story, why are you here? And yes, how did you get to this point in working on science and technology? What has interested you from whenever you were a little girl until now? Just tell us a little bit about your story and your background.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Shirley. Thank y'all for coming here and having me. I was an activist before I was kind of in this field. I started in the climate space, advocating for conservation from like grade 6 all the way up until now. But my largest frustration, and we heard this a little bit from Dr. Smith's speech too, where was that I think youth are often called to talk about the problems and talk about the issues that we're facing, but we're not invited into the rooms to develop the solutions. And for me, it was really important, and this is still a challenge that we face, to become technically skilled so that I could be a part of one of the people developing some of these solutions. So I got into this conservation space, got frustrated. I pursued a technical education in computer science, and I ended up in commercial aviation to begin with. And it was a very rigid kind of industry. So I really wanted to get into a space where I could innovate a little more. And that led me to kind of become a part of a government agency, more specifically NASA. And there you have a little bit more room to innovate. And once you get the technical expertise, you are kind of invited into those rooms and you can forge your own path. But it's not always easy to gain that expertise. There's a huge kind of gap in the amount of opportunity that we see. In the industry in the US, the aerospace industry is still predominantly white and predominantly male. So 72.2% white, 86.4% male. And if we expect for our sustainable technology to serve the masses, the people most impacted by climate change, then we have to have people who are actually facing the problems in the rooms developing the solutions. And as many of you probably know, women are disproportionately impacted by climate change. 4 out of 5 displaced people are women. And this is because they have limited access to information, limited mobility, limited resources, and they're also 14 times more likely to die from climate change-related disasters. And you would think that with the issues that women face, they should already be in these rooms, but truly in the US, only 2% of tech ventures are women-led. So we really need a fundamental change. For me, the biggest way to kind of make that change is to be a part of these industries who have a tremendous amount of power, but also stay kind of steadfast in your own passion and intuition, and make sure you don't sacrifice that. And it's challenging, and I think we'll get to this, but it's challenging, but make sure you advocate for the issues that you're passionate about, because at the end of the day, the power structures depend on people, and if they don't have the support of people, then they don't have anything, right? So and for them to have our support, they need to, make us happy, right? So that's kind of what brought me into this space, and that's why I'm here.
Yes, thank you. A round of applause, because oh my god, I always do look up for two women that are in these like fields, and more importantly, I know that for computer science, like any engineering too, it's not. I know that it's easy because there isn't any more thing. Thank the universe too, because we don't have any more barriers as before, as in you as a woman cannot enter the university, like it's open for everybody, but still we have these invisible limitations, and these invisible barriers that are not letting us get into these fields, in a way that there are still taboos, there are still stereotypes on how you should be like continuing your professional career, what bachelor to choose whenever you're a woman. Oh, you should go into marketing, you should go into design, because you have a more creative style, things like that. But you cannot go into hard engineering. Like, for example, I had some friends, I have some friends that are into the mechatronic engineer, which is like a kind of a mix between mechanics and electrical for robots and things like that. So they were really displaced whenever they had in the university, within the classes, within the labs that they were doing in the workshop, space, within like the materials and the hard stuff. I don't know like the exact terminology in English, but all of these things were specifically like invited for the men in the classroom to take part and to do it aside from the girls, because they were supposed to be better at that, or they were supposed to know how to handle it better. But in reality, well, these friends already graduated and they were the top students from their classes, and they could go into those labs. They literally, from those like male teachers as well, they could like prove them wrong about how they could also manage the tools themselves. So yeah, obviously, and I'm so inspired always uh, whenever I'm learning and whenever we're listening about these stories. But yes, I do want to highlight some things that you mentioned about the. Oh, it's so interesting that you have a technical that you like. You were searching and you were looking into a technical into education in computer science. Computer science is so important too, so big and so popular right now. It's really big for all of the AI, all of the um, Internet of Things, and all of these new fields that we're seeing right now. It's a lot of progress and a lot of like fast and rapid advancement through the whole digital field, right? It will be really interesting if you can tell us a little bit about that and your experience as well later on. But yes, another thing that I do want to highlight is how you, well, that could be in the same question, how you got into NASA, what is the reality inside, what you can tell us about it, because I think we all think about NASA from the moon and the big guys from the astronaut suits and everything, but I know it's far beyond that image that we all have, right? So it's about redefining the narrative. It's about also updating out that image that happened like last century. So it's about literally like whenever we're thinking about, for example, NASA, we start thinking about women astronauts. We start talking about women in these so important big labs and so important computer rooms, right? Um, so yes, and you're right, and this is an important thing to also emphasize. Let us remember all that the STEM fields are still predominantly white and male, and that less of the 5% of the big tech companies are women led, right? Which is a big problem and a big issue too. But yes, because we're here to talk about that, and we're here to talk about not only the barriers that we may or not know, but how we also can leverage and how we can better move forward a better not only future but a brighter present, and how we can all contribute, no matter if you're or not in the science and tech field, but how you can and everybody can contribute into these stereotypical gender roles that we are trying to eliminate too, and how we can empower our community, how we can empower our girls into those fields as well. But yes, continuing with the conversation, which is so great. I do want to ask you, in your opinion, what are the specific barriers that women and girls face in not only getting into these STEM fields, but accessing the science and really getting into the tech innovation, whether they want to pursue a career on these fields, but how they can not even access information like well secure and real information from the internet and all the connections that we have as society within the digital ecosystems, how we can effectively address these challenges as well from your experience, from your context. What are some things that you have also seen as from passing from an extreme or like a little from a big problematic to how is now, and how we are helping shifting the problem and the issue. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this might sound overused, but representation really is such a huge part of making sure that we really change the people, this narrative and perception of what an industry can look like. For most of the world still, when there is a crisis, women's education is the first thing to go. Women are called back to home to do agricultural work. Women are called back home to get married and have kids. So there's still a huge barrier for most women in the world to pursue the education, pursue the expertise that they really want to, when there is a time of crisis. And also during times of crisis, we see increases in gender-based violence, right? So it's really important to kind of break these institutional challenges that we see in society at large, and make sure that we are giving women the necessary training to advocate for themselves and necessary education to pursue further education. So another aspect to this is just being inclusive in hiring. In hiring in general, there have been numerous studies that show that women are much less likely to apply for jobs, which they don't meet every single requirement for. Most men will meet on average about 60% of the requirements for a job description, whereas women will in their mind think that they have to meet 100% of the job requirements, which also puts that kind of inherent barrier to representation and inclusivity. So just changing verbiage from you must have this qualification to have some experience in this, be willing to learn this, gain this skill, could make a really big difference in the kinds of applicants that you see within industry. And for the women in this room, I would say, while those changes are slow and take their time to happen, go for the opportunities that, yes, you're qualified for, but also you have an interest in, right? I can promise you that everyone in this room, all of us are qualified enough to learn and pursue our passion and the fields that we want to. And there's nothing kind of preventing us from being successful in whatever field we're passionate about, whether we have the resume bullet point or not. So let me see if I have anything. Another kind of aspect of this is also making sure as a society we're investing in women-led initiatives. As I mentioned, in kind of the venture capital world, there's a huge kind of gender gap in the kinds of initiatives that are invested in. So I would say that kind of feel encouraged to break out of the rooms and the echo chambers that you might be comfortable in and used to, because your voice really is valued somewhere else also, and you're qualified enough to speak on that. And yeah, I hope I answered the question.
Yes, you did. Thank you so much, Apsara. Yes, I do want to highlight. Oh, and yes, thank you. I really resonated what you mentioned, and specifically about the job applications. And basically, well, I do want to share a little bit of my personal experience here. As I mentioned, I recently graduated in June, actively searching for jobs. But yeah, it's hard. Certainly, it's hard. In like for the modern times that we are like living currently, there's a huge job crisis as well. Meaning that there are certainly like more barriers, more expectations, more qualifications to cover, more requisites, more everything, literally. And it's a systemic problem because in the society, in the context that we all live in the world, it's not like just a country. I'm from Mexico, but it's everywhere. I do see it in the United States too. I do see it in Latin America and in other parts too. And I'm sure it's also there in other continents. But we're facing and we're seeing how no matter if you were the top student in your class, no matter if you have the highest GPA, no matter if you have like so many like extracurricular activities, no matter if you have like a biggest CV, it's still hard to get those jobs, and it's still hard to not only like get and like be and apply for those, and to be actually contracted. Like, how can I say this? Yes, English is hard. Sorry, it's second language. but it's also hard in a way that there are not many options where your interests are too. I do work more in the or try to be there in for the environmental and climate, and there's also a big topic on green jobs and how young people are still actively looking for those companies that are not greenwashers, actively looking for those companies that us as young people can align to those values as well, and that are really meaningful for what we want in our futures, but still are not seeing many job openings, or there are no big companies in which we can apply that are actually good for humanity, right? But yes, and specifically for women in STEM and these big tech companies, this is like repeating, like it's repeating itself. It's always male dominated. It's always whenever you think about, for example, the big tech, Microsoft, Google, NASA. For the biotech that are not that famous, but Pfizer, for the vaccines, Pfizer, Moderna, um, Sanofi, everything, everywhere. You always think about males, whenever they are working there, and we need to like actively be starting this uncomfortable conversation, as we need to face the true challenges, and we need to face that it's 2024 and we still are not seeing and we're not shifting the faces of these companies. We're not still seeing women empowered nowhere around these companies and these jobs. So yes, it's and I do want to talk and touch the specific topic about how it's not only about the jobs, but how women themselves in the majority of the cases they try to whenever they have a background on an engineering, whenever they have a background and they already studied an STEM field, they are forced, and they are in their context, their own like background, they are forced to apply to other jobs that are not in engineering or are not in STEM fields. They work either as like consultants, or they work in a company, administrative, logistics. But yes, and that is so hard to because there's, and I want to post this, we do have more and a more like active percentage of imposter syndrome whenever applying to these jobs. Whenever we don't feel as qualified, we don't feel as great as our male partners, we don't feel as expected, we don't feel as confident. And that's why it's so important, and I do want to get to this foundation and this basic of why we need to empower ourselves. We need to like help each other in a way that we uplift and amplify each other's qualification, each other's achievements. We recognition is so important too. But yes, and I do want to welcome Ruby to the stage. Yes, Ruby. Now that we're talking more into tech, and well, this is a topic on women and girls, and I don't know, you have seen Ruby here and there running around, but I don't know if you personally know in what she's been into throughout her life. Ruby, if you want to explain and talk a little bit about your context, your story, why are you here, why in the panel of tech and women?
All right. Thank you, everybody. I'm a social worker. I've been a social worker since 1995. I just retired, but I was literally the respondent for fatal child abuse and family fatal violence for LA County. There's 88 cities. So I was with police, fire, ambulances, people committing suicide, homicides. And my emphasis was children 5 and under. And I would literally be holding the hand of a baby as baby's dying because the baby was killed by his parents. And so it was my job to figure out, as an investigator, to find out why did this child die. And so I got my way into IYC because I'm a child youth advocate. And I felt that IYC was my calling. From a technological perspective, I saw a lot of delays in response. I saw a lot of delays in helping people. I saw mismanagement of data, and a lot of technology companies telling me that they know how to do my job. And I didn't find it hilarious. I didn't find it it was very challenging. And my phone going off. So let me turn it off. So what happened is, I also decided, well, I needed to go to school when I already had my master's, to go back to school and get a degree in computer information systems, because I wanted to see why when you dial 911 or you ask for emergency services, why there was a delay. Because when a woman is in the verge of an act of violence and the police delay 8 hours, it's too late. If the woman has a gun against her head by her boyfriend or husband, you don't have 8 hours. You don't have 24 hours. If you wait even 10 minutes, she could be dead. I know that. And so I got into the world of technology in terms of trying to understand what can we do to help children in crisis? What can we do to help young adults in crisis? And so, like, for instance, because I'm our first responder, I had access to technologies. And there's a technology system that's being used still today where the response mechanism is wrong. So if you have a wrong technological paradigm or protocol, then those that are brand new to the field are going to follow this data system because they think it's accurate when it's not. And so there was actually a moment where researchers from this top university, I can't give names, came into my department trying to come up with this new paradigm for the workforce. The union, SEIU, is 97,000 members, knew I knew my technology and said, we want you in the room to talk with the university researchers to why this system may not work for all of us. So I went head to head with the researchers and said, what you're trying to do is causing a workload impact. It's going to waste taxpayers' money, and you're going to put kids at risk, and you're going to make my life hell as a worker. I do not approve of this. I gave research analysis to the union, and we told them to go away. Don't give us technology that does not bring common sense to the workforce or the people that need them best. And so that's why I got into technology. I really believe in the use of advocacy through technology. For me, this phone is a powerful tool. If I'm in crisis, I could use this phone and find a domestic violence shelter. If I am having a mental health crisis, I could find a peer that has the same episode. Say, hey, I need help. My therapist is not available. Can you help me out? Can you take me off the ledge? I'm about to jump. Sure, I'll be there for you. Tell me where you're at. I'll be there. If I need food, I could find the nearest food bank. If you want to have a protest, you can use a mobile technology to set up protests, to have an active participation as a group. You're stronger in numbers than you are by yourself. So I could use my technology to activate, motivate people to move forward. So from a technological perspective, I use technology as a tool for empowerment and purpose. As it relates to this topic and women in tech, most social services, human health services, medical are women. And so for women's perspective, we too are not seen and heard in the tech field. When we know what happens in our own home, we're moms, we're raising our children, but yet we are not told that we're expert enough. Men say, we're the experts. Wait a minute, did you give birth? Did you hold a baby in your arms? Do you know why your son's crying? Do you know the steps of some men are really good in that process, but in general, most social work positions are held by women. But when we try to advocate for ourselves in this field of technology, we're already there. I like, for example, I go to hackathons as well. Hackathons when you enter a challenge, right, for technology. I'll go into a health space hackathon, a social work hackathon, and I'll be the only social worker in the room. And I've been to hackathons, and the other hackers will be in the room, grab my shoulder and say, whose son are you dropping off? Like, I'm not dropping any son. Oh, is your husband here? No, I'm the one that's participating. You, yeah, and as it makes me feel that I'm not worthy to be in that space, right? And so it's really, really difficult for me to move up in the space and to be heard and to be seen. And so I do have a team where when we engage in tech innovation, empowerment, whatnot, I will step aside. And there have been times I have to ask my teammates that are men to speak on my behalf because my word's not getting across.
Thank you, Ruby. Yes, okay, that was so powerful. We need to visualize and amplify these stories. I'm telling you guys, this is not the first time I'm hearing Ruby's story. That's why we're here with you today because it's important. It's important to learn and to share this and to echo them from the learnings so that history does not repeat itself because as you may have had those experiences years ago, that those same experiences that we may think they are far long gone, they still continue. They are still here, and it's not possible that 2024 and with all the feminist movements, with all the gender equality, we're still facing these threats, these issues where we cannot thrive and we cannot literally continue and push ourselves forward in these spaces of tech and science. So yes, and we will start briefly for the Q&A. In case there's anyone here that has any questions, any comments, if you want to share any stories too, yes, they're in the back.
Hello, good morning, everyone. I am Sheku Kamara. In the past 2 days, I've been talking, pointing at the problems in some of our conversations. And today, I just want to try and point out solutions. As a student of international relations, I've had courses in gender and feminism. And for me, the problem with the gender and feminist discussions boil down to a fundamental problem of society not being able to acknowledge and appreciate the physiological differences between men and women. The current structures we have reward or are based mainly on capitalism. And capitalism, as we know, rewards profit. So say I grew up with my sister, same age, and we go to school. And as we get to a certain age, we have needs for mating companionship. My sister gets pregnant, naturally some things happen. And in most of the developing societies, she doesn't get to stay at the same level because I get to go forward. I'm a man. Nothing happens really to me. So I go to school, I finish, but then she has to stay back. Now she has a kid. She has to take care of that kid and everything. What we have not done is to appreciate that this is an important part of our society. That the difference between a man and a woman is what holds society together. And so what we have done systematically is to focus on profit and not appreciate that what women are in entirety is what makes society great. And so we should put in structures to appreciate that, okay, if a lady were to be stopped by the natural circumstances that make her a home, how do we fix those problems? How do we address those problems? And so for me, I think going forward, when we talk gender, when we talk feminism, what we should be really looking at is the difference between a man and a woman. And appreciate those differences so that everyone, can contribute to society equitably. This is how I look at things, and this is how I want us to look at things going into the future.
Yeah. Yes, and just to comment on that, thank you so much. It is important. Sorry, wait. Thank you so much. And yes, I do want to mention that we need to take consciousness and awareness on the circumstances of how the system is run in a way that's not only capitalistic and like profit over people each time over and over again, but it also we live in a colonialist, we live in an imperialist, and most important of all in this topic regarding what we're mentioning and we're discussing, we live in a patriarchal system in a way that all of those structures and all of those are intersecting each other, so that we do live in a system and in a society where women are kept being oppressed, and they cannot thrive within those systems because it's structured, and we need to change that narrative from the roots, right? And how we can, and we may see, for example, I'm myself, I'm an ecofeminist, and we see those intersections from how women are being oppressed, and how we as women are not only aside from nature are being let down by the capitalists, but profit, but also patriarchy, as all the capitalistic systems are also white male predominant systems. So that's why it's important to start this conversation in a way that we force ourselves into continuing with the solutions. Yes, I don't want to. Yes, if you want to address.
Yeah, I'll just briefly address it. Completely agree with what you said. Yeah, I think that's a really important point. I think we don't really value the the kind of intuition that women can provide that maybe a man can't provide in the room. We kind of all are forced to think along the same lines. But actually, if you look at like economic contributions, women will spend 90% of what they make investing back into the economy, into their communities, whereas men on average will spend about 40%. So women are more invested in the welfare of their community just in general, and that comes from, sure, a lot of times women are given the responsibility to take care of their family, to take care of their communities, and that brings valuable insight. On a more systemic level, one really small change that so many people can make but don't is providing resources for childcare, providing resources for parental leave. In the US, we don't have an official structure to provide parental leave, to provide the resources to women to take the time that they need to recover and to come back stronger with the new experience that they're getting from starting a family and that sort of thing. So I think that's a really important point. And that does provide valuable experience that we don't inherently value in dollar signs within society.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm Hamid Rohari Osako.
And you're from where?
From Sierra Leone. Two things I just want to bring your attention to. Firstly, aside from the global problem to look at, the societal issue, patriarchy, I want you to like look at how women can support women. Because for the most part, we see women bring up things or initiatives to try to push it, but we end up seeing other women pulling them down. We've seen that locally, we've seen that internationally. So I think it's very important because already the society is, I would say, chauvinistic. Okay, and so it makes a lot of sense if women can begin to support women, so that all the time when you have your initiatives or whatever you're pushing for, you see that, because obviously men are supporting women. Obviously, men are supporting. And in addition to that, I want to know, how do we get young people, both men and women, with the requisite skill sets, the requisite education and experience to represent young people at a higher level? For the most part, my experience tells me that we have young people who are representing young people, but they do not have the requisite skills and experiences. And looking at Africa generally, for example, in my country where I come from, a lot of young people with the requisite education, skills, and experiences are not even interested. Okay, and then the few who are interested, they are not pressing. And you have those without the requisite skills and experiences who are coming forward. Okay, and sometimes when you have the platform, they are unable to really make the requisite impact that we want to see. So how do we bring young people together who are really fit for purpose, and then put them in the forefront to advocate for young people? All these things we are discussing about women's empowerment, even when they were talking just now about the nuclear weapons, okay, we need people with the right skill set, the right education, experiences to be able to engage at a higher level. The idea of young people blasting the older folks will never solve the problem. We have to be able to engage respectfully, constructively, and that's the only way they'll be able to encourage us, to listen to us. Once we're able to create that safe space, you understand that we know their perspectives, and then they'll be able to sit on the same table with us. Where they see us as anti, they see us as people who are only charging them, we just want them to come out and then we get it. does not work that way. So we have to be mindful of our engagement processes, structures we use to engage, how we engage older people or people in higher positions, so that we're able to get them to give us what we want. I think those are things I really want us to look at. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll just comment on that real quick. I think we need to fundamentally change how we value experience. Lived experience is experience. Many young people do live through natural disasters. I'm from Houston. I have lived through so many hurricanes and floods. I can't even count how many of them we've had to rebuild our house so many times, and I'm not the only one. Pretty much the entire city. So that experience should be valued as a starting point to have a place at the table to talk about solutions. It shouldn't just be in the number of years, in your age, right? It should also equally value lived experience. One thing that I've thought about that exists on a very small scale within the government is having things like detail opportunities, detail positions within institutions, where a person, regardless of their age, regardless of their identity, has a seat at the table, has the position of power that might normally be reserved for someone with 30, 40 years of experience, because this person can provide the lived experience, can provide that. But we also do, in the workplace in general, have to invest in young people being able to garner these skills. We have to be willing to provide scholarships, educational opportunities. Education in this country is becoming more and more expensive year by year. So we have to be willing to invest in the people who have lived these experiences to become skilled enough to develop solutions. But I think, yeah, very important point as well.
Yes, and I think we have run out of time because we have to get into the next session. If you want to ask anything or comment anything, please feel free to contact us, and we will get to you with Ruby, me, and Apsara. We're really findable in all social medias. We can share those so that we can establish a conversation outside. Yes, thank you so much, Apsara, and thank you so much, Ruby. And yes, definitely, we can empower youth and we can empower women and girls. There are many initiatives, there are many so great projects from youth and advocating girls that are doing so great and so many things. We need to uplift them. We need to share those initiatives. We need to share those projects. And most importantly, give them the resources, fund them, search for funding, and also support them, uplift each other. We're a community that needs a lot of support in the terms of STEM fields. There's still a lot of stereotypes. There's still barriers and limitations. We need to build a community for that. So yeah, thank you so much.
Real quick, and one thing I do want to say, if a woman is in a power position, woman has influence, please open the door for the women behind you. Please do that. That is necessary.
Yes. Thank you so much. That's it.